Hi, it's Dennis Daly. During the years I was taking a radio show on the air and going all over the place, I went to some wonderful venues. But looking back, the scariest and most exciting was the time I went to the top of one of the towers of the Golden Gate Bridge. Of course, I had to have a host, the head of the bridge at the time.
Bob Warren is the manager of the Golden Gate Bridge, and along with Carney Campion, who's the bridge keeper, we've kept up kind of a phone tag, as it were, the past couple of months, because I told him the next time I was in the San Francisco Bay Area, I wanted to do something that I'm not sure they would let me do. And that was not only visit the Golden Gate Bridge, but go to the top of it, 700 feet above the water, just to see what it looks like up there. It was a beautiful, gorgeous late fall day when this program was recorded. I thought it would be fun to relive that day with you and share some of our good California sunshine and go someplace neither of us have been before. Before going to the top of the bridge, I sat down with Bob Warren, who is in charge of much of the operations there, and asked him about the allure, the romance, if you will, of that beautiful bridge at the City by the Bay.
I think it's just that the setting for the bridge is so beautiful. It's such a striking place to build a bridge, and the fact that for many years it was the longest long-span bridge in the world. I mean, people claimed it couldn't be built, but it was built, and it's just so beautiful.
There was tremendous bridge construction here in the 30s with the Bay Bridge, which in a way, I'm not saying I like more than the Golden Gate Bridge, but from an engineering standpoint, it's a mass. It's two suspension bridges and a double-decker tunnel and a cantilever bridge, and it's a huge, but that's a much larger area you have to cross out there. Can you go back in time and tell us what was here before this, what transportation in the Bay Area was like, and then how this whole idea of the bridge that couldn't be built started germinating?
Well, I mean, the transportation at that time for both the north-south travel from San Francisco to Marin County and also from San Francisco over to the East Bay was all ferry boats. And, of course, I wasn't here at that time, but it's my understanding there was a lot of opposition from the ferry boat companies when they started talking about building the bridges. They tried to stop it. It's kind of ironic now. We've kind of gone completely around. Now that we've got the bridges in, we're going back putting ferry boats back. So well, we need both of them.
Well, I remember when the BART strike was going on here some time ago, people were suddenly discovering the ferries and alternate routes of transportation, and it proved that even today they work.
And the ferries are just a wonderful way to commute. I know our patrons love it. You don't have to be in the noisy, hectic traffic. You can just sit back and relax. And I'd love to commute on a ferry boat if I could.
Well, Bob, as an aside, you haven't lost your Boston accent totally. And when I think of transportation in Boston, I think of two things. I don't know how often you've gotten back there. The unfinished freeway ramps downtown, whether that was during Mayor White's administration or what. And that wonderful, you love it, you hate it tunnel to get into Logan Airport.
The good old Sumner Tunnel. Yeah. Right. Well, now they're building massive improvements in the Boston area with the third tunnel. I guess it's the Ted Williams Tunnel. And the Sumner Tunnel is now the Callahan Tunnel, I think.
Well, Bob, the ferries here, the idea of the bridge came up, and I guess it was one of those massive, and I may be wrong here, projects that took place when there was so many public works projects going on in the country, the WPA. But wasn't the funding for the Golden Gate Bridge different than a lot of other projects we saw at that time?
Yeah, the Golden Gate Bridge was very unique in that there wasn't state money available to build the bridge. That was all going into the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge. So the only way the Golden Gate Bridge got built was that 6 counties went together to form the Golden Gate Bridge District, and the voters of those counties actually put up their property for the bonding, the revenue bonds, in order the bridge to be financed.
Because if you look at this geographically, it would have made sense to have bridged the bay toward Oakland, because you had a large urban area over there, shipbuilding over in Alameda. But I can see people saying, you know, what was north of here in the 30s? Sausalito was probably a sleepy little village. The wealthy people lived out toward where Tiburon is now. But if you look at it, I can see a lot of people saying, why build a bridge that direction?
Well, I think the people in the northern counties, I mean, they were looking, they get a lot of tourists recreational travel, and they're also looking at business.
Before this program is over, we will take a little tiny elevator and go to the very tip top of one of the towers of the Golden Gate Bridge. It's not a tour. I'm not bragging. It's something that you really can't do on request unless you put in your application a long time down the road and you happen to do a program like this, and they find the time to do it. I think you'll find it a big thrill. Right now we are in the offices of the Golden Gate Bridge in a building at the base of one of the towers on the San Francisco side. I shouldn't say one of the towers on the San Francisco side, the tower on the San Francisco side. Our host is Bob Warren. He is the manager of the bridge, and I continue my discussion with him. I wanted to know about the history, exactly when the bridge was built and how long it took.
I believe the construction actually started in 1933. The district was formed in 1929. It took about 4 years to get the plans and financing in place, and the bridge opened for traffic in May 1937. So it's about 4 years of construction time.
Were there really people in the engineering sphere who said you cannot bridge a gap that big?
I don't know how serious they were, but I mean, yes, there were a lot of people that were doubtful of it, and a lot of people were concerned that it was right near an earthquake fault, and people were concerned about the strong tides that flow through the bay. I mean, so there were a lot of naysayers that, for one reason or another, said it couldn't be done.
Do you know off the top of your head about how much traffic this bridge carries now? I mean, there are days when you really have to queue up to get into the toll plaza.
We are about at our maximum capacity. We do about 120,000 vehicles a day, traffic in both directions. During the peak hours, I mean, we are at capacity. The off-peak hours, we have a little reserve capacity, but not much.
How long have you been with the bridge here?
I came here in 1971.
So you've seen good weather, bad weather, demonstrations. Let's go back to one, the bridge anniversary. Am I right in saying so many people got up onto this bridge and almost flattened out?
I hope I never go through another weekend like that. The actual profile of the bridge changed during different periods of the walk as the crowd moved on the bridge. Parts of the span would go up, parts would come down. It would really look bad.
Are you telling me then, maybe halfway off the record, you had some concern as this was going on?
We had concerns, yes. I think we were more concerned that what would happen if that massive number of people started to panic out there. Weight-wise, the bridge was capable of carrying the load. It was probably the maximum load that has ever been on the bridge, but it didn't overstress the bridge. But it was just so many people. I mean, there were 250,000 people out there on that bridge. If there ever had been a panic situation, it could have been really bad.
Now, you said the bridge moves. Obviously, I think even the layman realizes that in summertime, things expand because of the heat, and maybe the arch of the bridge is higher. Is there something within the bridge that can be adjusted or that compensates for all of this?
No, there's nothing that can be adjusted. I mean, they made adjustments during the construction of the bridge. But right now, I mean, a suspension bridge is a very flexible bridge. That's what makes it work. And it moves during the wind. It moves just as the sun moves around during the day. The towers lean one way in the morning and lean the other way in the afternoon. I mean, it's what really makes this kind of a bridge work. It's why a suspension bridge is really good during an earthquake, is that it takes a lot to get it moving. It's very flexible.
Unlike the section of the Bay Bridge that fell in during what's affectionately called the World Series earthquake, that was a plate, a panel, if you will, in an area where it had to either slide or move, but it had no choice.
Right, it's a very rigid part of the bridge, and there just wasn't much leeway there. If the bridge moved at all, something had to give.
What kind of comments do you get from people who stop here? I'm sure, as we say, there's such a romantic fascination with this, but people who come from overseas, for example, to many people, the Golden Gate Bridge and maybe the Statue of Liberty represent America.
The main comment we get is, why isn't the bridge gold? For some reason, everybody thinks that the Golden Gate is going to be a gold bridge, and I get any number of phone calls and letters each year, some actually complaining that it wasn't gold, that they were disappointed, and they want us to change the color. We really like the color the way it is. We think it's very distinctive, and it's what the original designers and architects wanted, and we like the color.
It's kind of a lovely rust in a way. Does it have an official name?
We don't use the term rust out here.
I'm sorry.
The official name is Golden Gate Bridge International Orange. And I'd describe it more as a brick color, not a rust color.
Okay. I will never use the word rust here on the bridge. Can we go outside? It's a windy day here in San Francisco and meet out on the bridge and talk about it out there?
Sure, we'd love to.
Our host is Bob Warren, who is the bridge manager. We join Bob now as he takes my colleague Bill Clough and me in you might as well call it a golf cart. The bridge is so big to get to the towers and back and forth with guests and painters, they have to use a golf cart as we rumbled along down one of the sidewalks toward the tower that contains the elevator that will take us to the top of the bridge. I asked Bob about a massive project that's going on to retrofit the bridge to make it safer should there be another big earthquake.
Okay, well, we have a $175 million project to do what we're calling our seismic retrofit work. This is basically using knowledge that was learned during the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake. The things that, really the textbooks on earthquake engineering were rewritten, and the majority of the work is going to be done in the approaches to the bridge, the span that we're just going on right now and the corresponding span at the north end of the bridge. The actual vent structures are going to be completely replaced. It's a major work. The main bridge itself is not in too bad a shape. There'll be some work done in strengthening the base of the towers. There'll be some work at the tops of the towers. The anchorages are going to be upgraded considerably, the anchorages for the main cables. But the biggest part of the work is in the approach spans.
Now, does that mean, you talk about the anchorages, where the ends of the cables obviously have to be anchored somewhere? You're going to add cement down there? Is it going to be a lot of underwater or underground work?
No, it's not so much that we're going to be adding cement. What they're going to be doing right now, the cables anchor in two separate, what they call weight blocks, and they're going to tie those two blocks together. They're concerned that there could be independent movement of the two blocks at the time of an earthquake. In the anchorage structures themselves, they're going to be adding a lot of diaphragm walls to just stiffen up the structure.
I would presume one of the most common questions you get asked, and the one I have to ask you is it true the bridge is always in the state of being painted?
Any bridge of this magnitude is continuously painted. I think you'll find that anywhere in the country, that long span bridges you're just never done. There's always work to be done. So we have a full-time paint crew on this bridge, and every other bridge on the bay has a full-time paint crew.
Well, now this bridge ranks where now as far as length of span worldwide?
I think it's probably third. I think it's third or fourth as far as the length of the main span. The bridge in England is the longest span, and then there's a bridge being built in Japan that's a longer span.
It's absolutely remarkable, too. You come to San Francisco, and I will tell this to people who've never been here. This bridge has a million faces, depending upon what time of day it is, whether the fog is in or out or halfway. Every 3 or 4 minutes you can look at this bridge in some weather conditions, and it looks absolutely different.
Every day is different. That's what makes it so nice. And every morning when I drive down coming to work and come down through the tunnel and see the bridge, it looks different.
Now, you say tunnel, that means you live on the north side. Is it the Waldo Tunnel?
Right.
When you come down from Marin County, in order to negotiate the hill, they brought the Highway 101 here down through tunnels, and that's a beautiful view when you emerge out of those tunnels.
Because you have the bridge that's just kind of framed in the portal of the tunnel, which just makes a beautiful picture just in itself.
Well, now, Bob, here we are. People realize this program is recorded. We call it live on tape, as it were. It's a weekday, and you have a sizable number of people out here biking and walking across. What is this like on weekends in this city where people are so into being healthy?
You probably about 10 times what we have right now. On a busy Saturday or Sunday or a holiday during the summer, it almost gets difficult to maneuver on this sidewalk. You'll have so many pedestrians and bicyclists out here.
Now, we are on the San Francisco side. That would be the north. Are we on the north side of the span? I'm trying to put this in perspective.
No, we're at the south end right now.
Well, I mean, but the side of it.
Okay, we're on the east side.
The east side, okay.
Right.
The other sidewalk on the other side, is it always used for maintenance? I've only seen people on this side.
During the weekdays, from 7 in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon, it's strictly for our maintenance vehicles. Then after 3:30, and on weekdays, and on weekends, then we open it up for bicyclists.
When I hear is a beautiful plaque, must be 6 by 6 feet, and it has that great, of course it was done when the bridge was done in the 30s, that great Art Deco lettering on it. It lists all the, are we stopping here?
We'll be stopping.
We'll be stopping here. Okay, this is one of the, this is the tower that's closest to the San Francisco side, and when you walk or bicycle across here, you have to make a nice little jog. We started out the program talking to Bob Warren, who is the manager of the Golden Gate Bridge, first in his office, and then as we rode their executive golf cart, if you will. That's how you get around the Golden Gate Bridge if you work there. It's such a long span. You drive down the wide sidewalks where everybody seems to go to enjoy themselves, whether it be biking or jogging or walking. As we stopped at the base of the South Tower before going up the little tiny elevator to the top, Bob and I continued our discussion, and I asked him about the management of the bridge, whether the other major bridges, like the Bay Bridge, were under the same commission or control group.
All the other bridges on the Bay are owned by the State of California Department of Transportation. We are the only bridge that is not under that group.
Now, what is this fortress-like building here underneath? Is that the edge of the Presidio?
That's what they call Fort Point. It's now the Fort Point Museum. That was there, prior to the bridge being built, and that's why the bridge has an arch span at the south end. They had to build an arch over the fort. They couldn't do anything that would interfere with the fort during the construction. That was built in the late 1800s.
And if you're a communications fanatic, as I am, your incredible television tower up on Mount Sutro up there is a one-of-a-kind in the world.
And I was fortunate the last day of construction, before they opened it up for use, I was able to go up the top of that tower, and it was just beautiful.
Ooh, what's the view like from up there?
Well, you're 1,000 feet higher than the top of our towers, so that much better.
Bob, also there is still a tremendous amount of traffic, sea traffic, not only barges and commercial traffic, but we were talking about ferries earlier. There's a whole industry in sightseeing ferries here.
It seems to increase every year, which is great for the tourists in San Francisco.
Well, you want to go to the top?
Sure, let's head up.
All right, where's the entrance? Was that little porthole door I see over here?
If I can find the right key.
We'll let... almost more keys than I have. We'll let Bob fumble through the keys here. This is like going in well, I've never been in a submarine, but I can imagine. Maybe I better let you... Boy, you want to have a Halloween... Hello. Who, what... Bob, where'd you go? Oh, I thought you were going to lock us in here. Okay, do I need to back up so you can go first?
Yeah,
I should tell everyone. Oh, there we go. Now we got some lights on in here.
Get some power on here.
All right. Boy, is this industrial. Can that elevator hold 3?
Yep. Just do a little rearrange.
We have a third person here with us who's acting as engineer today, and I don't want people to think I'm that obese that I count for 2.
You could let me get here.
Oh, you want me in first?
Yeah. I just have to be able to get my hand to that control lever.
Okay. UPI's Bill Clough is making his way in. Now, let's see. Where can I put my hand so it's not sticking through anything?
Yeah, you don't want to...
Now, does this trip take long? Because this is going to be cozy here.
We get to know each other very well by the time we get to the top.
All right. This would be... somebody ought to put this in a movie.
Can I get behind you? And don't accuse me of getting fresh. We're going to have to rearrange a little bit.
Here we go. Hurry up. I'd like to have a photo of this.
My painters tell me that they've had 7 at one time in here.
Come on. Must be standing on top of each other. Are we better now? All right, don't anybody breathe. Here we go.
We're not moving yet.
We're not moving yet. I noticed that.
Okay, let's try again. Hey,
there we go. Now we're going to be going up how many feet here, Bob?
We're going about 500 feet. Roadway level is about 250, and we're going up to 750.
Okay.
above sea level.
Now, there are different stops on the way up. I'm looking to see, unless there was an emergency, any other places to
There's
stop?
4 cross struts on the tower where there is a hatch where you could get out onto that cross strut.
You know, one of the prettiest pictures I remember seeing of the construction here, I don't know whether it's called a cornice. It's a bracket. It's part of the facade of the towers, which melds from the upright to the horizontal down on the ground with people standing around it. How enormous some of the pieces of prefabricated steel were for the tower for this.
And that's all decorative, what you're
Yeah.
seeing. The actual cross braces are just a kind of a triangular truss type arrangement. And it's all this Art Deco steel plate that's over it.
Now, the noises we are hearing is the sound of the traffic, maybe trucks going over
The expansion joints.
the
at the
expansion
tower.
joints, yeah, okay. Well, let's not mention the word earthquake while we're...
No, we don't want to talk about that. It was interesting when we did the deck replacement of the bridge. The bridge got kind of unbalanced due to the fact we're taking off heavy roadway section and replacing it with a lighter roadway section. And it actually caused these towers to lean so that the elevator would scrape as it was going up. It actually got out of plumb that much.
I forget, somebody told me I was doing a tour of the Capitol building, that the statue of the Indian Maiden, which is on top of the Capitol, it was refurbished recently, that during the day, the top of her head moves about a foot
I can believe
in
that.
a circle because of the heat, the expansion. The dome is metal on the Capitol building.
Yeah, that's the same with these towers. As the sun moves around during the day, the tower actually moves. At one time, they used to have a plumb bob that hung down inside the tower from the very top right to the pier, and you could trace the movement of the tower and with this plumb bob.
You know, it's amazing. Of course, even cement will flex to a certain extent.
quite a lot, yeah.
But you look at things like this as being so substantial and so sturdy, and then you realize the engineers had to take into account all of this movement, that the bridge actually is alive in many ways.
Very much so, especially a suspension bridge. Very flexible structure.
I hate to ask this, but are we almost there? I'm not claustrophobic quite yet.
We're about halfway.
Halfway.
You've got to hang on a little bit longer.
Okay. What did you think the first time they took you up here, other than what a small elevator?
I was just amazed by it. I can't really remember my first trip.
This is such a monument. The motel where I was staying last night had your typical book in there looking at all the San Francisco sights. They had a lovely picture of Tony Bennett on the front of it.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess there again, to many people around the world, that song is what reminds them of San Francisco.
Very much so.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the painting as we continue the way up here. You say it goes on continually. You do it 7 days a week?
Oh, no, 5 days a week. But we have a full-time paint crew, about 30 painters at this time.
So you have guys, and I don't know, you have women on the bridge?
Yep.
Who that's their job. Somebody says, what do you do for a living? I paint the Golden Gate Bridge.
And they're proud of the fact that they do. It's a very unique job. I mean, it takes a very special person to... We just passed strut 2, if you're interested. Got one more strut to go.
Okay.
No, I mean, it takes a really a special type of person to be able to do this kind of painting, to work at the heights that they work at and under the weather conditions that they endure up here.
The manager of the bridge, Bob Warren, UPI Radio's Bill Clough, and myself were going up to the top of the South Tower in what has to be the world's tiniest elevator. I would have put 2 people in it, but Bill wanted to go along and be engineer, so there were 3 of us. And we join you now from the top of the Golden Gate Bridge as 3 grown men try to struggle out of an elevator into which they were packed like sardines for more than 5 minutes. There we go. Well, I smell paint. Now, let me see. Do you want me to turn on this trouble light up here? Is that...
Get this one right here.
All right, they actually have... Oh, look at that. Okay. Oh, I want to say straight away, I don't think I have ever been up like this before. I don't exactly have a fear of heights, But when you look down through the grating we're standing at, we're how far above the road down there?
We're about 500 feet above the road right now.
Uh-huh, okay.
A long 500 feet.
Well, this is such a rare treat. Obviously, this is not a tourist thing. You don't give tours of the bridge. If anybody's listening, please don't call Bob and say, take me to the top of the bridge. But I've been very lucky on this show. Last year, I went to the top of Big Ben in London. Not quite as high, but we had to go up the steps there, and it took the poor fellow and I about 30 minutes to recuperate before we could do the interview.
Well, at least here you had an elevator. We didn't make you climb.
Could you, are you at liberty to tell the story you told me before we got up to the top about having the hatch close on you one day?
Oh, sure. I mean, I was asked by my general manager to take a couple of important visitors up, and it was late in the afternoon. It was a man and his wife. Fortunately, they were very good sports about the whole thing, but when we got up here, I used to be in the habit of closing the hatch just after we were up here, just to make sure no one would step into it. This day I closed the hatch, and unfortunately the lock was jammed, so we were stuck up here. There was no way I could open the hatch. And the elevator, you can't call back down to the roadway, so we were literally stuck up here on the top of the tower. And I looked back down towards our maintenance area, and all the workers were leaving. It was quitting time. So I had to very sheepishly call in on the radio and ask the electrician who's on duty to climb up the cable to rescue us up here.
Well, you know, I noticed there are quite a few communications horns up here. This is a godsend for people in the communications industry to relay across this bridge because of the height up here.
Well, everything you're seeing up here is our own microwave system. This is how we communicate with our bus facilities in the northern counties and actually with all the buses and the ferry boats. This is all a microwave system that goes to 5 different mountaintops plus the top of the tower here.
What, well, I'm looking at our Bill Clough. We might as well wave at him. He's over there taking a picture of us. We couldn't hear it on the air, but underneath us went another one of those tourist ferry boats, and the guy's giving the tour on the PA system.
Yeah, there's just a steady stream of tour boats that come out here, especially in a day like today. This is very unusual weather. You really lucked out.
Well, we did, and it's absolutely phenomenal up here. I was going to ask about the crush of traffic that can come across here. Obviously, things go wrong sometimes. The traffic accident here and there, bad weather, bad visibility. How far have you seen traffic back up trying to get into the toll plaza? And you only pay toll one direction.
You pay toll southbound. The worst I've seen it due to a bad accident or something on the bridge, it may back up as far as Marin City or to the Richardson Bay Bridge to the north, which is about 4 miles. But that's a rare circumstance. Sunday afternoons in the summer, sometimes we will get a bad southbound backup. Sundays, it's the only time of the week when there just are not enough lanes of traffic for both directions, and we do get a backup.
I'm trying to remember the name of the event, but one time visiting out here, I ended up quite by accident for an event in which the harbor here is flooded with boats. It's a tribute to the Navy, is it?
Okay, that's Fleet Week.
Fleet Week.
In fact, we just had that last week or week before when the Blue Angels are out here buzzing the bridge, and it's something that has diminished in the last few years because now there isn't much of a Navy presence in San Francisco Bay, but it used to be a major event. And this year, we didn't know for sure if they were going to have a Fleet Week or not, but it turned out they brought some ships in.
Because I remember I went across the bridge, and over in the distance on the Marin side is what's called the Marin Headlands, and there's a beautiful road that clings to the hillside. There was so much traffic trying to get back into San Francisco. I had all afternoon. I went the long way. I went roundabout and came back through Oakland. It was a great drive, but I'm sure in its heyday, that weekend really cluttered up this area. Beautiful celebration, though.
Yeah, Fleet Week draws a lot of people, and the other event that really draws a lot of people to the bridge is the 4th of July fireworks display. Then it's not quite as bad now because they've moved the fireworks display more over by Fisherman's Wharf, where it used to be right off Crissy Field, but traffic just comes to a complete stop on the bridge while the fireworks are going off.
You know, you're absolutely right about the great weather we've got up here today. We were worried before coming up, and when we planned this, that the winds would be so violent that it wouldn't be possible to record up here because of the noise. But This is just a magically beautiful day up here.
This is very unusual. The wind is out of the east, where normally our wind is in the west or the northwest. And that's why it's so warm here, is we're getting the warm. You can't blame this on El Nino. It's coming the other way.
Bob, I'm looking at the huge cables, and I guess it's simplistic to say cables are what a suspension bridge is. It is the cables on either side of the roadway from the two tall towers, and then the roadbed is suspended from them. I take it within this solid pipe you see here must be an awful lot of individual strands. I mean, it is not this casing that holds up the bridge.
No, the cable is made up of just little parallel wires. They're about a 1/4 inch in diameter, about the diameter of a lead pencil. Something over 20,000 individual wires. And the cable was actually spun in place by big spinning wheels that would go back and forth, one end of the bridge to the other.
Did I hear you say at one point in the discussion that the decking is lighter now, that the bridge actually, the span does not weigh as much as it did when it was first designed?
Well, right now it weighs just about the same total as when it was first designed. Let me go back a little bit.
Okay.
The bridge was originally built, and then in 1951 we added bottom lateral bracing to stiffen the bridge for wind load. They found out that there were problems with this kind of a design. The Tacoma Narrows Bridge in Washington collapsed due to torsional stresses, and they added the bottom lateral bracing to this bridge to stiffen it up. Then in the 80s, we removed the concrete deck from the bridge, which was deteriorating, and replaced that with a lightweight steel orthotropic deck. And adding the lightweight deck brought the total weight of the bridge back to about what it was when it was originally built.
So it was a little overweight from the 50s to the 80s then?
I wouldn't call it overweight, but it was just heavier than the original design.
Heavier than the original design. Bob, what's the life expectancy for something like this? Will this ever have to be taken down? Hopefully, no.
Well, I don't think anybody really can say. I mean, we just arbitrarily talk about a 200-year life. I don't think anybody knows for sure. It all depends how well we can maintain it and keep replacing components as they need to, like we've replaced all the vertical suspender ropes. We've replaced the roadway deck. We're doing earthquake retrofit work, and the main cables are something that we have to keep up, and the towers, things that would be extremely difficult to replace.
Well, Bob, it is certainly one of the engineering marvels of the world. I don't think there is a child around the world who has not seen a photo of the Golden Gate Bridge or knows something about it. I want to thank you very much for letting us come up here to the top. It has been a very, very rare experience, and I would again invite anybody whether they've been to San Francisco or not, take some time and see the bridge. It's a tremendous experience. How long does it take to walk across?
It's 2 miles, so depending how fast you walk, you can do it in half an hour easily, or a lot of people jog across the bridge if you're feeling energetic, or you can just dilly-dally and spend all day getting across.
One other thing I was going to ask you earlier, we were talking about the weather and this bridge, the winds, the corrosion and everything. How bad can it get here at certain times of the year? Would we not even want to be out here with a raincoat and a hard hat on?
Oh, yeah, very much so. Sometimes, the wind can be blowing so hard that, we would not allow someone up on the top here. It would be all you could do to hold on. Just since I've been at the bridge, we've had to shut it down twice due to traffic, due to the wind, that it was not safe for cars to drive across the bridge. Vehicles were actually tipping over from the wind.
Well, good heavens. Bob, thanks again to you and your staff, and I think I'm going to take some more pictures.
My pleasure.
I just wish I could find those photos. A trip to the top of the Golden Gate Bridge. I'm Dennis Daly.